Welcome to Being a Successful Leader with Carl Welty. Carl is a leadership pioneer with years of challenging leadership and consulting experience. Here's Carl with some valuable insights, practical and proven methods for being a successful leader.
Greetings, everybody. Carl Welty here, your host for the podcast series, Being a Successful Leader. We have a different, a new episode every week, lasting from 15 minutes to a half hour. The series revolves around my three imperatives, I call them, for effective or successful leadership. The first, because leadership starts with you, is being a self-aware and skillful leader. The second is then having a sound strategy. The identity of your organization, be it an organization as a whole or your organization unit, that's your purpose, why you exist, and your core values, what you stand for. And then using that as a foundation or base, you launch out and develop a sound strategy. Where you're going, what it looks like when you're there, and how you're going to get there, vision, strategies, and action. And then, of course, you have to implement it, the execution phase. So that's your sound strategy. And then you have people hopefully rally around it. And that's where building a culture of commitment, my third imperative, comes in. A culture of commitment versus people want to work, not that they have to work. Compliance, commitment instead of compliance. So those are the three. Being a successful, skillful, and self-aware leader, having a sound strategy, and then having a culture of commitment. You can pick up on past episodes or review them once again if you care to. This is our 46th episode by going to the host of this podcast is webtalkradio.net, webtalkradio.net. Click on channels at the top, go down to leadership in the workplace, and then click on my icon, being a successful leader, and you'll see all the past episodes there. Also, each of these three imperatives, I have a book out on it, and you can go to welty.com, go over to leadership resources, click on books, and you'll see the three books there, and a short write-up in how to order them either through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or the publisher, the Ewing's Publishing. All right. Today's topic is results-based training. And I'd like to give you some valuable. I spent a lot of time designing training, giving training, that sort of thing, and learned some things along the way. And when we talk about our subject today, there's on-the-job training, OJT, and group training, if you will. And the things I'm talking about here really pertain to both, but I'd like to concentrate on the group training, whatever form that might take. So I'd like to start off with a principle. It seems very, very obvious, and it is, but not often followed as much as it should be. And then use that principle as we go down through the different types of group sessions, both inside and outside the organization, and kind of take a look at those for you. Okay, my principle, I call it the principle of instructional influence. Again, pretty obvious, but sometimes, most times, I think not followed. And the principle is the greater the tie between the instructional influence and the participant's real world and real needs, the greater the chance that the real learning and application occurs. The greater the chance that there's a tie between the instructional influence and the participant's real world and participant's real needs, the greater the chance, the greater success that real learning and application will occur. All right. So bearing that in mind, let's go through the kinds of venues, if you will, that you, as an organization leader, either arrange for or attend yourself or participate in some way in arranging and conducting maybe. Let's look externally first, external venues. One is the get-together. You've attended those, I'm sure, and they're always usually fun and a lot of activity and so forth and so on. These could be annual meetings or conventions, things of this nature. And oftentimes, in addition to perhaps a golf tournament or entertainment or bringing different people in to talk, there'll be guest speakers. And oftentimes, those guest speakers, there's not a lot of learning going on. Could be a motivational speaker, or it could be a person who has a best-selling book, whatever. They usually are accepted very, very warmly, and there's usually some laughs, and they're very good, very entertaining. But in terms of learning, our principle of instructional influence, not much happens there. If you get involved in that and you want learning, then you've got to somehow go to the dive into the real world and educate the speaker, and then have that speaker relate to the population there. The problem many times is such a diverse audience, it's hard to do. So take it for what it's worth. It's entertainment. It could be very good entertainment, but there's probably not a long-lasting learning that goes on there, and certainly application. But that's one type of group session. Another type of external session is the professional development. Here, a person may go off, or you may go off to a professional conference of some sort. Greater chance of learning here, results-based training, because you selected probably the conference. And then inside the conference, many times they'll have different options, different tracks, different paths, and you select what's of interest to you, primarily based upon your needs, and you attend that particular lecture or lectures. And that's true of university-based programs as well, that you select and go to. There's a need that you feel, and maybe your superiors do too, and you attend and you gain some things and hopefully can apply them. So again, the learning increases because you handpicked it, and you have learning options, and you took advantage of those based on your needs. So that's where the principle kicks in that particular case. There's other payoffs too of external sorts of professional development there. You rub elbows with other people, get to know them, mingle with professional allies, gain experiences, maybe develop ongoing relationships, people you can tap into on an ongoing basis. And again, the key there for learning in the principle is to have a pre and post set learning application. What do you really want to get out of it? Maybe have conversations with your management, and then after a while, maybe talk to the same folks on how you might be able to use what you've learned. So those are some external venues. Again, the first one, the guest, getting meetings periodically, the group sessions, getting together. Not much learning there, more entertainment for what it's worth, but you can get some value for learning out of the professional development pieces. Let's go internally. A couple here too. Internally, one option is that you or your organization bring in guest speakers, bring them in-house. But one of the things that happens in organizations many times is that the executives, and maybe this isn't you, hopefully not you, they'll get involved in flavor of the month or fad of the month. That best-selling author or the person they saw on TV, what have you, bring them in-house, and the professional pundit comes in, and just like the one for the outside venue where you have get-togethers, the entertainment value may be very high, but the learning value and certainly the application is usually quite low. So again, take it for what it's worth. Now, if you're involved in that, again, applying our principle, what you want to do is maybe spend a little more time and effort and money and work with the person that's being brought in and get them acclimated to the real world. For all this, you need to go out to the real world first and identify those needs. And then acclimate that speaker accordingly. And maybe you do that through a little small group they meet with ahead of time. And then also after the speaker speaks, maybe right after or that night or whatever, kind of have a rundown, maybe circle a bunch of people around that are the target audience and talk about how they can apply it. Now, I have to forewarn you here. Again, I've had a lot of experience in this area, and there's a lot of high-paid professional pundits with their best books and so forth and so on, popular books. But I have found that most of them fail when it comes to how to actually apply. They'll talk about their anecdotes and their stories and and it's entertaining, and there's some value in all that. But when you get a circle of folks around that are wanting to apply it, I have found it not to be that helpful. But it's worth a try. It's better than maybe just having them come in and do their thing and do their shtick and just leave. All right. The last one I'd like to talk about here is internal again, and this has to do with workshops, series, things of this nature. And this is your best bet in terms of group sessions to have some payoffs in terms of learning and application. And I like to walk through a little model I've had for years here and see if you can get the highlights of this. 4 steps to it. The model that really puts to work in instructional influence. You got to go out to the real world and identify what your target population is, your target audience. You don't want homogeneous groupings or mixed groups, different functions, one function, organizational levels. The broader you make it, the harder it's going to be to have laser-like learning. Then again, you may want to mix things up because people can learn as they trade stories and so forth with people not exactly in their neck of the woods. Then part of that is intelligence gathering. We've talked about the goal analysis too throughout the series. That's where you take a goal, instructional goal perhaps, and think through what success looks like. How do you know success if you were to achieve this particular, let's say, instructional goal? And that's one way of doing that, going from abstract to specific, the goal analysis tool. Again, you can look that up in my books. It's almost in every book, and certainly in Building Commitment in the chapter on growing teams in the back, you'll find that sort of tool. Another is, in addition to goal analysis, is task analysis. You actually get into the position or positions. And we talked about position plan in one of the earlier episodes, that living working document to capture the ongoing role and set of results and position and those reporting to it, if there are any, is organized to achieve. And then you get beyond the results and you say, what are the tasks? What are the key critical tasks that this person has to perform personally in that particular position? You start listing those tasks, and then out of that, there may be some tasks that are particularly difficult, or there may be some new thoughts about a particular task, and you develop the task listing, and then you have to ask yourself, now, what are they doing when they're competent? What do they have to know or do about this task? And that may be the focus you want for a particular training or series of workshops or lectures or sessions inside a workshop. And you can get that from the participants, subject matter experts, just knowing it, observation, discussions, and surveys. Okay, so you went to the real world. You described, the population you want, and then through goal analysis and or task analysis, you got your hands on some needs there. Now you got to go back to designing you or somebody working with you or for you, the instructional influence. There's 3 parts here. You want to start with the instructional objectives. What are the outcomes to be achieved? Actually, you want to start with the identifying and sequencing, if there is a sequence, the different modules. If there's going to be more than one instructional module, there may be a sequence to it that you want through the 3-day workshop or the 1-week workshop or the full-day workshop. So you sequence, and then for each of the modules, let's say you have 3 in a 1-day workshop. What do you want the participants to be able to know or do when they finish with the instructional influence? Now, the instructional influence, of course, could be a talk backed up with maybe video, maybe some practical application, exercises, all those sorts of things. Okay, so you sequence, and then you have an outcome for each module, and then you'd actually develop the particular course or session. You can use subject matter experts to help you there. Use your goal and task analysis. Get them involved in learning. We call it active learning. You want to have deliberate practice and constructive feedback, if that's appropriate. Role assuming exercises, which is a form of deliberate practice. Maybe case studies, small work groups, handouts, checklists, all those sorts of things to enhance the instructional influence to head towards achieving that instructional objective or objectives. Okay, so there's my basic model. Go out to the real world, identify and define what the real needs are. Go back and design the instructional influence, starting with sequencing, if that's appropriate, and then take each module that you come up with and define an instructional objective or objectives, what they'll be able to know or do when they're through with the instructional influence, and then the development of the particular module or modules. Very, very solid model. It'll serve you extremely well. And then what you also want to do is that you want to do some pre and post activity. In other words, if you have a lot of, let's say, particular, let's say, general foreman coming into a general foreman workshop, you'd want to have them work with their, let's say, superintendents back on the job to identify the particulars regarding the agenda, the topics that you've identified. And then afterward, link it up again, build a bridge so that they have a conversation how they're going to apply what in this case, general foreman learned, okay? So build a bridge before and after the instructional influence. So many times people go away, they get jazzed, even when what they're going to is well designed, but the environment they go back to doesn't support. And so you want to build that support mechanism back in the real world. And the last piece I like to cover is an in-house too. It could be in-house or it could be external. And that has to do with certification. What certification is taking the model I just gave you, start with the real world and design the instructional influence and really tightening down both the instructional objectives and the actual content of the workshop. And you use certification when it's critical that the participants be able to actually know or do whatever it is the subject matter is. It's important that they be certified and that you or the organization is assured they can do it. So it requires the most intense of needs analysis and then organizational influence design. How do you know they're competent? And so in the instructional objective, rather than just talk about what they be able to know or do, you'll actually have some verification of that. Usually it takes the form of what we can call the performance and conditions and criteria. What it will be able to know or do when they're finished with the instructional influence. What are the conditions that are surrounding their display of competence, given this, given that, and what's the criteria that they are 75% correct or the thing works. And the best is just do it, just do it. And then a subject matter expert or the instructor certifies them that they can do this particular piece. Take a lot of extra work, but sometimes you might run across where it's important to certify. And what's this called is criterion reference instruction. That's the popular name for the last piece I've described here. A guy named Bob Mager, M-A-G-E-R. He's kind of the pioneer, and he's the foremost instructional technologist, as we call it. And Bob and I have worked together on different things, and he's really put together this design. So if that is of all of interest or you've ever run into that, look up criterion reference instruction, and you'll need some help, with outside folks or maybe inside folks that are steeped in this sort of thing. So that's the last form of the instructional design we'll talk about here. And what's unique again about the criterion reference instruction is that the traditional training, the constant is the duration, how long the thing lasts, 3 days, 4 hours, whatever. And the variable is the learning. People go away with different levels of learning, and they all went through a 3-day program. With criterion reference instruction, the constant is the learning. They're certified or not yet certified, and it may take them different amounts of time and you give them maybe options and freedom because there's a lot of resources they can use to meet the objective. And one person may be reading something, one person may be looking at a video. Then along the way, there's some lectures and things of this nature. So they're using a variety of modes, and maybe some people can do it right off the bat. They don't have to really bone up. So in criterion reference instruction, the constant is the learning, and the variable is duration. Bob Mager used to say with the traditional approach, it's a spray and pray. You hose them down with the same information and hope that you pray that they get it. Okay. Kind of humorous. All right. A quick tour, through the different kinds of group sessions, both external and internal, and weaving the thread of my principle of instructional influence through that. So hopefully that heightens your awareness of different options up there and what you might do to make a better chance of learning and application. If that's your goal, if it's just pure entertainment, that's fine too. But be aware of what you're really looking for. Now, next week, the topic we're going to shift to constructive discipline. Constructive discipline, all about how to handle misconduct, employee misconduct you may run into, or not performing up to minimum acceptable level. How do you handle that? And we'll go through constructive discipline, what it is, and the steps for you next week. Some of you may be familiar with it, others not so familiar. But each of you as leaders, special leader managers, need to have a knowledge of constructive discipline. So until we meet again next week, you take care of yourself.